right now. Steve Moore, he's the senior economics writer and member of the Wall Street Journal editorial board. Also author of Who's the Fairest of Them All? The Truth About Opportunity Taxes and Wealth in America. He's Steve Moore. Hey, Steve, good morning.
Hey, guys, good morning.
So we're having a heated debate here in the state of Maryland. In Annapolis, they are trying to raise the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour. Governor O'Malley and Lieutenant Governor Brown, who wants to be the governor this fall, they attended a rally outside the Capitol building there. I love it when politicians go march in the street to convince themselves to do something. But meanwhile, get this, they want to carve out an exemption for Six Flags America, the amusement park. They say, they hire a bunch of, young people just entering the workforce and seasonal employees, so they shouldn't have to pay this higher minimum wage. Wow, that the whole argument for the minimum wage being increased comes tumbling down now, doesn't it?
It sure does. And, look, I want a high-wage society. I want Americans to get a pay raise, and the truth is they haven't gotten a pay raise under Barack Obama because his policies have really shrunk the middle class and destroyed jobs, as we saw last week with the jobs report. But the way to create jobs is not to price out of the market the people at the lowest end of the economic ladder. I don't know about you, but my first job, I remember this, gosh, I've been dating myself here, 30 years ago, I worked for $2.65 an hour in a warehouse. And, that was one of the most important jobs I ever had because it teaches you how to show up for work on time and how to be courteous and how to not get fired. And, if you knock out, and by the way, I bet 90% of the people listening to this show, I'll bet you their first job was a minimum wage
Absolutely.
job. And what I'm saying is you lose those jobs and you hold people out of the workforce. If you don't have your first job, you can't get your second one or your third one or your fourth one.
I mean, look, if you're a business and you all of a sudden you're talking about having to pay more for your hourly wage earners, and you can't afford to do it, what are you going to do? You're going to let some people go, aren't you?
It's a great point. I get so frustrated with these left-wing economists, and they come out with these studies. Raising the minimum wage will actually increase jobs. Wait a minute.
How does that work? Yeah.
They're going to make workers more expensive, and then they're going to go out and hire more workers. Gee, I don't know any economics, study that says that. In fact, look, we know that under Reagan, when we had the economic boom, we never raised the minimum wage. But you know what? The minimum wage became irrelevant because the economy was doing well. Employers were hiring more workers. As there was more demand for labor, workers were able to demand higher salaries. That's what you want. You never want to raise the minimum wage at a time when the economy is crummy because all you're going to do is add to the unemployment lines. But that's good, right? Because that'll mean more people will get unemployment insurance, and that will create more jobs, too.
By the way, Steve Moore, just yesterday, 75 economists came out. They all signed a letter, including Nobel laureates. Then they all said, yes, the minimum wage should go up. I guess what they're thinking is if people have more money in their pocket, that means they'll spend more money, and ultimately that'll mean more people will get hired. I mean, that's kind of...
You know what just makes me so angry about that theory, and this really permeates the economic debate right now, is that businesses, small businesses, are going to be the ATM machine to pay for all these wonderful programs, right? I mean, last week I was with the heads of companies like Denny's, Domino's Pizza, Outback Steakhouse, the restaurant industry. And you guys know this. The restaurant industry in America employs 10 million people. This is a major employer in the country. And they were telling me, look, we're gonna replace workers with iPads. we're gonna get rid of everything's going to become self-service because we can't afford to pay people $10 an hour to serve and so on. And you're not going to be able to get a waiter to serve on you anymore in this country.
Well, I think that there's another thing here, and I've talked about it before here. I think that people are losing their jobs because of Obamacare, or they're having their hourly work week cut back because they don't want to be considered full-time employees. And so this is the way the unions are sort of counteracting that by increasing the minimum wage. If you're going to work fewer hours, at least you'll get paid more for them.
Yeah, and the last time I was on with you guys, remember we talked about this, that what 49ers are and 29ers are, and I'm not talking about the San Francisco 49ers. A 49er is a business, and we see, hundreds of thousands of these now that are capping their employment at 49 workers so they don't have to kick in at 50 workers or Obamacare. So we've actually given, Brian, we've actually given employers an incentive not to hire workers under Obamacare. And, of course, a 29er is a business that only hires workers at 29 hours a week so that those workers, they don't have to pay all of these, mandated benefits under Obamacare. So here's a perfect example of how Obamacare is killing jobs. And answer me this question. All these economists who say this is so wonderful. How are you going to feed your family, pay your bills, pay your mortgage on a 28-hour-a-week job?
Yeah,
you just can't do it.
No, you can't.
So let's zoom out a little bit here, Steve Moore of the Wall Street Journal. Here's all the news we're getting. Last Friday, we had a dismal jobs record, which showed 380,000 Americans dropped out of the job market. We now have participation in the job market down to 1978 Jimmy Carter levels. And the only thing you're hearing from the administration and the Senate is extend long-term unemployment and raise the minimum wage. Is there any actual plan that might allow for businesses to hire people so that we can get people working?
Well, don't forget you missed the last part of the troika. They also want to raise taxes on small businesses to pay for.
Oh, right, and more Obamacare. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So these are all job killers. And look, I'm actually kind of optimistic, as you know, when I was with you a week or two ago. I'm kind of optimistic about the economy for 2014. Businesses are doing pretty well, but all of these things are holding back the kind of expansion that we. Do you realize, by the way, this is the 5th year of a recovery? And for most Americans, it feels like the recovery never even happened.
Yeah, okay. We got to talk real quick about one other issue, and that has to do with the stalling in the United States Senate of this attempt to extend unemployment benefits.
Yes.
What do you think?
Look, I'm for someone getting unemployment benefits if they lose their job or if they get laid off. Of course we want a safety net. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about 2 years of benefits. And what we know from every iota of economic evidence, if you provide people with 16 months of unemployment benefits, they won't start looking for a job for 16 months. If you provide them 18 months, that's when they'll start looking for a job. So 2 years, we've basically increased the unemployment rate in this country, and we're holding people out of the labor force because of this dumb unemployment insurance policy. So we're going to make unemployment worse if we extend these unemployment. And by the way, how is this fair for the people who get up for work at 6 a.m., work 40 or 50 hours a week? We have to pay taxes for the people who are sitting on their butt watching TV for 2 years.
You never hear about those people. I thought we were supposed to look out for the little guy. What about the little guy working? Yeah. All right, Steve Moore, we're going to leave it there. Senior economics writer, member of the Wall Street Journal editorial board. Again, check out his book, Who's the Fairest of Them All. Thanks, Stephen Moore.
Take care.